listening to Happy Hour Hustle, a bi-weekly podcast featuring the musings and witty remarks of the one and only Kim Bodie. We can promise at least 2 terrible jokes out of Kim and at least 10 minutes of incredible thought leadership from some amazing and influential guests. So grab a glass of iced red wine and join us for a wild ride. Here's Kim.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Happy Hour Hustle. I'm Kim Bodie. I'm your host. I have dogs on my lap. Hi, Phoebe. She's like looking at me like I'm crazy. Which is fair. Today, we have a very special guest that we had to pay travel to get her here. It was a very extensive trip she took from her office. Jen Van E, who is our Director of Client Success. Hello, say hello, Jen.
Hello, Jen.
What do you do at your job?
Well, as you said, I am the Director of Client Success, so I PM some of our... You okay over there? I PM some of our larger clients, and then I also kind of oversee all of our client load in the background, as well as all of our staff, and make sure things are awesome here.
Uh-oh. We also have another guest here, Parker, or if you ever follow us on Instagram, the Derpy, and he is Derpy.
Can you say hi?
He's like, no, but I can be annoying. So my next question is, how do you know me? How did we first get to know each other?
Dogs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Specifically Dobermans.
Yeah, Dobermans.
Yeah.
All through Doberman
Yeah.
Rescue.
Yeah.
Yep.
We just find each other, the crazy dog people do.
It's true.
So we're just drawn together. What is your drink of choice, since obviously this is a happy hour hustle?
Well, right now I'm drinking a pumpkin spice latte. I'm sure you love that. But if we're going afternoon beverage of choice, we'll go with a vodka soda with a lemon and a lime.
A lemon and a lime?
Yes.
Do you squeeze them in, or do you just
I
they
definitely
just hang
squeeze
out
them
there
in.
on the rim?
One of my friends used to always give me shit for it, though, because she said she didn't like fecal matter in her beverages because apparently fruits are covered in fecal matter, so it hasn't killed me yet.
Well, I mean, you do have a kid too.
Yep.
2 kids.
Yep.
You have children.
Yeah, they haven't killed
Yeah,
me either.
yeah. All right, now that we're talking about your pumpkin spice latte, we're talking, this next segment is things we're obsessed with. I can honestly say I'm not obsessed with this. Pumpkin spice, yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like, I'm not obsessed with it, but I'm not gonna lie, it is pretty freaking good.
Is it just because it reminds you of fall?
No, it's actually just tastes good.
All right then, cool. I say a big no, but that's just me. What is it? What is that, like 400,000 or 500,000 calories or something?
Have I cared
Yeah,
ever?
well, no, you haven't. Do you remember that one you ordered? It was like a caramel.
Oh yeah, the caramel ribbon crunch. Those are
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
They are
I
quite
was
incredible,
like-
but I don't want to know how many calories are
Yeah,
in it.
well, I was going to tell
Probably
you.
my daily
just,
intake.
Yeah. Buffalo plaid, is that the best color?
I love all plaid, and yes, I actually was just talking about the other day. I put buffalo plaid socks on because my feet were cold, and I couldn't find my slippers because it's the beginning of fall, and
Right.
I finally need them.
Right.
So I just put socks on that went all the way up to my knees.
Fall-themed booze.
I don't
Name
even
your
know
favorite.
what that is.
Well, it could be like, I mean, they make like gross cinnamon vodka.
No thanks.
They could do, well, Bailey's. Bailey's always reminds me of fall.
Yeah,
Like in
actually
your
rum
coffee.
chata.
Ooh, yeah.
Rum chata is
Yeah.
always good. I call it Christmas milk.
Yeah, that is very sweet. All right, so today we're actually going to be talking about culture, which is something that we talk about a lot here, to the point that I think there's groans every time I say the word. I think as a small firm, and we talk about this a lot, I think as a small firm, culture is what keeps people here, and culture is what attracts people here. And our industry specifically does have a lot of changeover and or turnover. And I think part of that is because, marketing is a field where a lot of times you're coming right out of college, whether it's entry level or whether, you're trying out agency before you go to corporate. People usually use it as either a starting point or, a stopover point. So I think what has always kind of set us apart is the culture aspect. One of the last jobs that we had posted, we had over 200 people
Right.
that applied. And I think, one of the common threads or the feedback that I got was that it's your culture. You guys have fun. I love that, you go to our website, you see,
We at least make it look like we have fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's all an act. We don't drink. We don't do anything.
Nope.
We just hang out
Everyone
in the
sits
dark.
here and stares awkwardly at each other.
We really actually secretly hate each other. No. But I think that's one of the reasons too you chose to come to 834. You came from a corporate environment. So talk a little bit about first what attracted you to 834, and then what you think makes like a really great culture, or what we essentially have tried to achieve here.
Yeah, so I worked my career working a lot in architectural engineering development world and spent the majority of my career there, and then worked my way into working with a Fortune 200 company as their marketing manager. And while it was great and I loved my job and I loved all of our salespeople, corporate culture is very, very difficult. Things move slow and I don't. I don't like feeling stagnant. I don't like having to wait a year and a half for a decision that I think is really important for a company to be made. It was difficult. And being the only woman at a table was really, really difficult as well. So for me, it was, I needed out of that. And I was in the process of having a child, so that made it that much easier for me. And so I stayed home with my daughter for a little while, and I decided I'll go back when I'm ready, when it's the right opportunity, where it's the right place, and it's the right fit for me. And so when I saw you post the Director of Client Success position, I was like, okay, this is totally up my alley, but let's talk. And I think that's why I'm here, is that I directly messaged you. I was like, hey, like, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Like, we don't need to go through this whole process. Like, because I know you don't want to either.
Let's
and
just
now
go to
that
Bud
we've
and
done that
Stanley's.
together,
Let's have some beer.
Yep.
Let's just talk.
Let's just make this happen. Yeah, I think my favorite part of that was, when we finished our conversation, you're like, so what do you see as the next step? And I was like, well, it's your company, so I think that's your call.
What do you want the next step to be? I think that says a lot, though, about our culture here, is that we do ask for so much feedback from our client, or not from our client. Well, yes, from our clients, but from our employees. I mean, I think we give our employees multiple avenues to express their feelings, not to me, but
that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that's why you're here. But to give us feedback or to improve existing processes or whatever. I mean, I used to say we're kind of like a flat, what do you call that? Like a flat, words escape me, but like we obviously have our leadership team, but like we see the rest of our team as well as
we're
equals.
all part of the team.
Yeah, we're
like,
all part of the team.
There is not a hierarchy.
No.
There is not a, like, you have to go up the food chain to get something done. Like, we are all 100% on the equal level. Like, if someone needs help, I step in a lot and help. And I think that's what being a good leader is.
I think you lead by example. And I think that's a big part of the culture too, is I think as a leader you have to recognize what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And I knew one of those when hiring for Jen's position wasn't management. I mean, it's just not an area I excel at.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that...
I wouldn't say that you don't excel at management. It's management of, like, people.
Yeah. Like, managing other things I'm fine at. I think the thing is, too, is I know that I can, like, yes, I'm capable of doing it, but am I good at it? No, not really. So I think that's a big part of whether running a business or, an existing culture, is that you have a leader that's willing to step back and say, this is not where I excel, and I'm going to hire somebody that's smarter than me. And I think that's where you see a lot of misses in culture is, you can say this is what our culture is, but if the leader or the management doesn't exemplify that, then it's just a whole load of shit. Like,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I think it's a good balance, too, of how the leadership works together. And I think what we do a lot differently than a lot of other companies is that we have those conversations in front of our staff.
Yep.
It's not something that they're excluded from. So they feel part of the bigger picture. It's not like we're making decisions that are going to impact them that they don't have a say in. And they get to see us banter, and we do. And I think that you and I balance one another a lot. And when one is frustrated, the other talks the other down.
Yeah.
And
luckily, it hasn't happened at the
I was
same
going to say,
time.
luckily we both haven't been lit up at the same
But
time.
I think too, and obviously I'm just speaking from, my experience with 834, but I think when you hire people that are strong personalities, I personally, I'm attracted to that, and
But it can go two ways.
it could. Oh, it totally could. But also, in our environment, I respect you a lot more if you come to the table with a solution or just like, hey, this is what's happening. Here's what I think we can do to fix it. But being able to stand on your own 2 feet and not being afraid to like have those hard conversations. I think, you know, your culture has to be open to that. Your culture has to allow for those conversations.
And I think that that's why we have the staff that we do.
So talking a little bit, because obviously we are a smaller team, what do you think, you know, especially as a small business, or what are the first steps you think in defining or creating that right culture?
The first steps, I think transparency is like absolutely the number one of being open and honest about what's happening, why it's happening, and how it's going to impact everyone. I think when things are hidden, that things get misconstrued, and then that's when you have people talking to one another about what's going on and making up situations that may or may not exist, and it's toxic. Also, of getting rid of people that don't fit the culture and don't resonate the culture, because having one toxic energy is infectious to everybody in a small team, and it spreads very, very quickly.
Well, we obviously, the entrepreneur operating system is what we function on, and we have for the last 2.5, 3 years. And it does say in the book, you know, hire slow, fire fast.
Right.
That's a hard thing to do, man, especially when you have a small team.
It is. Losing people is really, really difficult.
It's horrible. Like, I mean, it affects us all, you know, and I think that's a hard part too about even being a leader is, you know, you have to, again, you know, be transparent, but also at the end of the day, you still have to keep moving forward. And, you know, you something like that might affect you, but you can't allow it to stop you, and you can't allow it to stop forward momentum. And, you know, I think it's hard for leaders to be that honest. It really is. I mean, I struggle with it. You know, I struggle with, and everyone's like, "What? You're so blunt." Yeah, well, but there's also there's honesty, and then there's vulnerability, and it's hard to be vulnerable in front of a team. And, you know, I think, you know, I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and they said, you know, vulnerability is very attractive in a leader, because you're just admitting like, hey, like, I don't know everything.
Right.
And and
it's hard sometimes. It's really hard. I have a lot of conversations like with my husband and stuff too, of it's really hard to be on all day and to be overseeing and making sure that everybody's okay and that everybody's in a good place. Like, to do that and then to come home and do that still, it's like when you're sleeping is really the only time that you get a break. Yeah. And sometimes I don't even get that, because I'll wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning going, oh, did I do this?
Right. Like, so this is veering off topic a little bit, but I think we are a culture that is made up of, you know, the majority of us are women. Sorry, Chris. Yep. And, you know, and, but I think, well, yeah. And I think too, like, the hard part is, I think as women, we tend to drive ourselves a lot harder, and we tend to take responsibility for everything, and then we personally carry that with us.
Absolutely.
And we were talking about this morning, actually. Like, you know, it's hard because you don't feel like you can ever turn it off, and you feel like you're expected to be the strong individual for everyone, whether it's, you know, whether you're running the business, whether you're Parker's drooling everywhere right now. I hope that didn't land in your water glass. God, he's so disgusting. Parker, you're so derpy. But look at him. He just loves you so much.
He's so sweet, though. All he wants is love.
Now he's going to knock over all our podcast stuff. But I think, you know, I think we feel like we can't ever be vulnerable, because who's going to do it if we don't? Right. And no offense to, you know, our husbands, or maybe take offense. I don't really care. But, I mean, the fact is, like, we tend to, as women, take on more and drive things forward, and notice things and work to fix things, and I think a bit of that's our controlling OCD-ness, but I think that's just a natural trait in a lot lot of females.
It is, but it's difficult also when you are a strong female personality, because then people expect you to always be like that. But a lot of times it's almost a defense mechanism against the world, right? Where it's like, I need to be this way to be able to get where I need to be in my professional career, but I don't always want to be like that. I want to be able to go home and relax and be able to let go of some of that control and have someone else take over. And I feel like a lot of times having that strong personality outside
Yep.
of the home, people just assume you're like that all
Yeah.
the time, and
Yeah.
you want to be like that all the time, and it's not true. I mean, for some people it might be,
Yeah.
but for myself, it's
Well, I
not.
think we default to it too,
Right.
because we're like, okay, yeah,
I'm used to
I'm gonna let
functioning
it.
there,
Yeah.
so it's easy to
Yeah.
go there.
I'm gonna let this individual like step in, and then it doesn't happen, and then
or not the way you want,
Yeah.
and then the
Right.
asshole in us comes out.
yeah, and we're like, well, I'm just gonna do it anyway because I can do it better. No, but I think what's interesting though is because we do have a lot of strong personalities in at our at 834, and I think there's a balance there when it comes to culture. We want to encourage that, and we want to see that because that just we want everybody here to be a leader.
Right.
That's something that we encourage. We even have on our scorecards as it relates to EOS. But I think it is a balance when you want to make sure that everyone's working in harmony. People aren't siloing themselves. There's teamwork happening.
Right.
People are working with empathy and seeing where's another team member. How are they doing? They look like they need some help. I got to step in and do something.
Yeah, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our team is really, really strong at that.
Yeah. And I think our core values, so we talk about transparency. I think one of the first things that we did, and I really do encourage anybody to read Traction, which is based on the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or talks about that, and that is what our company functions off of. And it's been a game changer for our company. But, part of moving into that was defining what our culture was and just sitting down and having those really tough conversations, like where do you want to be in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years? And as a small business owner, you tend to not think past the next day because it's just too overwhelming. So knowing that you also have to pull together a leadership team, and that team has to have your back, and there has to be trust there, and you do have to be vulnerable with them, and then
knowing
that's
that
how
those
you move
things
forward.
aren't stagnant.
Yeah.
Like, just because you've set goals and said, this
Yeah.
is what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it, doesn't mean that you can't change it.
Yeah.
Like, things
You have to be
grow.
fluid.
They grow and they progress. And I think that's the important, like, with EOS and with Traction of like making sure you're having those quarterly meetings, doing those things where you're actually making time for your leadership team to get together to decide what the next steps are for the organization.
Right. Totally. Well, talking about core values, can you name all 5 of ours?
Oh, shit. Well, I'm going to say we put you
No,
first.
don't point it out to her.
We put you first because it should be the first one, even though it's the third.
Right.
We fix it. We know our shit. We work harder than the rest. And why is it always the fifth
another
one?
swear word?
We're not assholes.
Yes. So I always forget one too. It doesn't matter which one. But
No, and I think all of us do.
Yeah.
It's because you get through and then you throw 4 out. And you're like,
Wait a second,
there's
there's
only
another
one
one.
more.
I think, when you're developing those core values, which really will, again, define and should embody your culture, it really does have to be uniquely you. I mean, yeah, there's swearing in our core values, but also they're swearing in our office on a regular basis, and we are who we are, and we're unapologetic for it. And I think that our core values reflect that.
I would say the same about you.
Yeah, well, yeah, yay. And one of our kind of guiding principles is to find comfort in the uncomfortable. And I think that as a business owner, you just learn to live in the uncomfortable because, I mean, honestly, like, you'll think everything's great and then the bottom falls out.
Yep.
Or that's what you have to. We're not naturally pessimistic people, but you do have to plan for the worst possible scenario to happen.
I always call it being an optimistic pessimist.
Yeah.
Because you hope for the best but
Yeah.
expect the worst.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly it. So I think one of the things we know though is, in a very high stress industry, which is what we are in, that you are always going to be uncomfortable. So we have to be able to function in that uncomfortableness and move forward. And so,
Oh, he's going to pee.
yeah, I'm just waiting for Parker to pee. And it'll be the first time on a podcast. Maybe not. Maybe it's happening. We haven't noticed. Hey, Parker, come here. Parker James. Yeah, let's stop being derpy. Come over here. But anyway, what's your last parting thought on culture and one piece of advice you would give a listener?
My one parting advice is remember that people are people.
Yeah.
They're not a number.
Yeah.
They have lives. They have things going on outside of work, and you don't always know what people's
No.
circumstances are.
No, agree. And be able to go with the flow a little bit. I think it's the hardest part. Like, you can set up the structure, you can set up but stuff breaks, things don't work, people get sick, like, people leave, people come, dogs pee on things. I mean, you just got to be ready to go with the flow. Just roll with it. So our last segment before we wrap up is our dinner party one, which is one of my favorites. So it's where we talk about awkward dinner party conversations.
Oh, boy.
You know, like those topics that you want to avoid, but you know, always bring up. So this one, it comes up all the time. Kids versus dogs.
Oof. That's a hard one
Yeah.
because I have both.
Right. And I think some of the stuff I get and, you know, that you heard before, you know, Cruz and Quinley is, you know, is having a dog the same level of responsibility as having a kid.
A dog is really good practice for a kid.
Yeah.
I don't put mine in diapers, but I mean,
Right.
you do.
I mean, I do. So, hey.
But I think a dog is really good practice for a kid, but a kid is a hell of a lot more work.
Yeah.
When a kid is learning things, I think it's a lot more rewarding when you can see them figuring stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think the unconditional love of a dog is pretty amazing,
Yeah.
where you can literally push them all over the place
Yeah.
and be like, get away from me, and they still just want nothing
Parker's
but love.
always coming back for more.
Yep.
Well, and I think you hit the nose on the head. One of my one of the things that super irritates me is when people do use a dog as practice for a kid, and then once they have that
Oh, and then they
kid,
get rid of the
it's
dog.
time to get rid of the
Oh,
dog
no.
because, you know, I've got a kid and this dog
I don't
that
have
once-
time for this
Yeah, mhm.
responsibility. Yeah,
So-
sorry. You signed up for it.
Right, exactly. I mean, and they are your responsibility, just like you wouldn't
You
give
knew
your
how
kid
long
away.
it would live when
Yeah,
you got it.
Right,
so-
exactly. It's not a goldfish, people.
Yeah,
Which
we
is-
flushed one of those down the toilet when we moved. We told
was it
Chris.
still alive?
Yeah, it was. It's okay. Remember Nemo? Like
Yeah.
all sewers go back to the
Yeah,
ocean.
that's totally how it works. Well, I mean, that's the sad part is that does happen. What's messier, dogs or kids? Mine is,
Kids.
yeah. Really? Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, mine really doesn't.
Do anything?
No, he
Well, I have
he
7, so
sucks
there's
on
always
blankets
something.
and puts holes in blankets,
Yeah.
so we have a really, really hard time keeping like throws in
Yeah.
the living room. But I mean, other than that,
That's
he's
funny. Murphy used to do
pretty
that
clean.
too. Would suck on it.
No, it's
Yeah.
a Doberman thing. Like it is. Oh, it's
Yeah.
really gross though.
Yeah.
Real gross, especially if you step on one of them
Right.
that's on the floor. It's like
Squishy.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But also kids
It
leave
is
squishy
squishy.
things. So, what are your opinions on child leashes? My parents used to have one for my brother, which I think is great.
I actually have a funny story to share about that. Not from my own experience, but we went to Disney when we went to go adult Disney. I saw a parent that had one of their kids on a leash, and kid outran leash, and kid went face first into pavement. And yeah, since then I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to just really try to keep an eye on my child.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like that's why you have strollers, but I guess sometimes they want to get out. So
Yeah.
I would totally put a kid on a leash, but I also have 7 dogs, so my opinion's probably not real relevant here. But
Yeah, after the face plant, I was like, yeah, that's a little
yeah.
rough. I mean, maybe if you like put the center of where the leash attaches higher so that it pulls them at least on their butt, I could handle
speaking
that.
of dinner parties, what's one of the most awkward things that's happened to you at a dinner party or at a hosted event at someone's house where you walk into the closet instead of leaving it out the door?
Okay, that was really good. That was a great story. I'm not quite as awkward as you are in those
Yeah.
situations, but I do have a funny awkward story. I was in an interview actually once, and it was for Boyne, and this is when I was 16 years old, and I wanted to work for Boyne so bad.
Yeah.
I was in my interview, and the manager asked me, he was like, so what do you know about bowling? He said Boyne, but I thought he said bowling, and I was like, why in the hell is he asking me about bowling? Boyne doesn't do anything with bowling. So I started talking about how I was on a bowling league when I was little and all of this stuff, and he's looking at me really weird, and I am feeling incredibly uncomfortable, and afterwards he's like, okay, and I'm like, did you not say bowling? And he's like, no, I said Boyne, but
So
It
did
was-
you get that
I
job?
did get the job. I got the job anyway, but it was so awkward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got some real good awkward interview stories. We'll save those for another podcast. It could just be all that, just me talking to myself about all the times I've been super awkward, which is a regular occurrence. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in for another edition of the Happy Hour Hustle. We have a lot of content on our blog, 834design.com, that does talk about culture. Also talks about the entrepreneurial operating system. I've basically drank the Kool-Aid. Like, that has been a game changer for our company. So if you ever want to talk about it, you know how to get a hold of me. Otherwise, I'll see you on the download.